Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of At the Well. It's our discussion series about online publishing, journalism, and digital innovation. And I'm glad everybody could be here. Today we're going to be talking about publishing techniques and experiences amongst the partners of the Oregonian News Network. And we have a panel of speakers here who will be sharing, their experiences and some of what they've learned about things like target marketing, content strategy, branding, and then monetization, which is generally the topic everybody wants to talk about. So my name is Cornelius Swart, and I'm the coordinator of the Oregonian News Network. And to my left is Lisa Skube of Journalism Accelerator. And then there is Jessica Honaker of The Bug Chicks, and Kristie Reddick, also of The Bug Chicks. There is Ken Aaron of Neighborhood Notes, and Amy Wang, who is an editor and journalist here at the Oregonian, and she's one of the bloggers at the blog and newspaper column, Omamas. So I'm going to start off the conversation, which is being broadcast now, but you can also join us at Twitter at the hashtag #AtTheWell and ask any questions if you're watching live or just on Twitter. The general format for this conversation is we have one speaker for each topic area, and then basically anybody can jump in after that. Anybody has a personal experience or a question, you can just give me the high sign and we'll bring you into the conversation, and that goes for people on the panel as well. So we just want to keep it as open as possible and just try to wiki the knowledge together as best as we can. So the way that we're looking at this is one path to online publishing, which takes on the idea, in chronological order, almost in order of process of starting up a publication, starting with getting a target audience in mind, creating a brand identity, developing a content strategy, and then monetizing once you've achieved those three goals that have produced an audience. This is just one way to sort of organize this conversation. Basically, this has been my observation of the last 7 years of working in this niche online publishing business, and so that's kind of why we're taking this track. But we'll talk about all these subjects, and at the end of the conversation we'll have time to just bring in any questions that people have as well. So we're gonna start off with myself, actually, with my own personal experience. I was the publisher of a community newspaper, and it was an online news site called The Sentinel. And it covered North Portland, Oregon, roughly from 2001 to 2010. I was the publisher from 2005 to 2010. And the way it started was, I sat down and thought it through in terms of audience. So North Portland, from MLK east, out to St. John's, and then even there's a little wing there east to Northeast 33rd. This was an area of the city that was not, at the time that I became publisher, covered by a community newspaper that had the direct mailer model, which is these newspapers get mailed out once a month. They go to people, you just get it. You don't have to have a subscription. It's free. You live in a certain area, and it just shows up in your mailbox. And then you might see them on the street as well, or in stores. And so Northwest Portland had one, deeper into Northeast Portland had one, Southeast Portland had one, Southwest. All of them had a direct mail community newspaper, and North Portland did not. And this was also at the time when the online tools for publishing was just starting to come online. Blogger was going to come online in about a year and a half after I bought the paper. YouTube wasn't there yet, but it was coming. And so I decided to jump into that space. I had been a community organizer and had polled people pretty comprehensively and found that there was a hunger for a different voice in the community. There was dissatisfaction with a bi-weekly newspaper that was already in the area but was subscription driven, and there were a lot of dissatisfied business customers. So between the two, there was readers and customers. I decided to make a go of it, and I purchased a small paper and expanded it into this area that I've described, which was called District 33 in sales parlance at the Oregonian. This was all one advertising sales district. And so then what happened over time is that we never could make the sales sustain what we needed. Other community newspapers were running at about $25,000 to $20,000 in ad revenue a month, and we were not bringing in half of that in our good days. And so one of the explanations is that when I looked at the territory, you have a population that does not have the household incomes that the rest of the area, rest of the city has. And you have a smattering of businesses sprawled out over a very large area. So it became very difficult to get a critical mass of advertisers. I had a publishing book at the time that was written in 1989 and said newspapers generally go to people who have a household income of $50,000 or more. And now the income spread in North Portland was anywhere from $23,000 to $43,000. There were some spikes in the 60s and 70s, but they were small. Once we got into the Alberta corridor, the incomes raised up to about $80,000, and we found that the advertising worked much better amongst those residents. And so while there was a desire for community news, we found that after 5 years, we'd exhausted the customer base. There was simply no more people that we could tap, especially in the depth of a recession. Also, there were just a lot of businesses that went out of business. I had a box of about 150 ad clients and leads that had gone out of business in the 5 years that I had been a publisher of that publication. And so, here is an example of the best intentions, a great geographic opportunity, an audience that wanted to have its voice out there and have, basically it was just neglected as far as much of the alternative media, community media, mainstream media. People just wanted to have their stories told. And they liked us. But really a market that could not support the mechanism of this direct mail community newspaper. And so that's kind of my lesson of finding a target audience, is to know who you're talking to, know what they want as far as information and stories, but also make sure that they can support the operation that you have. A community newspaper is a very expensive operation compared to a website. So now, we're seeing that small communities, marginalized communities, are getting their own news services in the form of hyperlocal news blogs, and that has been a great, I think, innovation, and it's brought a lot of news into communities that didn't have coverage before. But the Sentinel was an expensive lesson in you need to have a market that can support you and your operation. And so that's basically my tale of woe on that one, and I'm willing to take any questions on what people have as far as just how to set up an audience. Yeah, Lisa.
Cornelius, what if you, instead of being a print publication, had been a primarily online publication? Do you think it would have made a difference, or is there a level where the connectedness, the wiredness of the neighborhood matters too?
Yeah, I think that's also very important.
Repeat the question.
Oh, the question was, could we have flipped to just being online only? and does simply the internet connectedness of the population, does that matter? And I would say very much so. We tried to run it as an internet-only publication. Again, this was 2010, so this community was coming online, but wasn't thoroughly convinced. The readers were probably more online than the advertisers and the businesses. The businesses wanted to see the print ad. You know, even if they didn't want to see customers banging on their door when they came, you know, when the paper came out, they wanted to know what they were getting, and they had to see that. And it was also a community that was slow to come online too. And I'm seeing now that I covered North Portland for the Oregonian, and people are delighted that, you know, someone again is doing dedicated neighborhood focused coverage. I'm just starting to see the older voices come into the comment section. I can pick them out pretty well after having reported on the community for 5 years. Yeah, we could not just move online. We tried for about 4 months and just, you know, it wasn't there. The revenues were not there. Any other questions? Cool, because we're gonna move through things pretty quickly, and I know people, you know, generally want to hear about the monetization part, like the money part. Where's the money? Show me the, you know, the golden key.
You better have answers. Answers.
And the tough answer is, you know, in my experience, going back to these, you know, these 3 first principles is like getting these 3 right is what gets you into monetization. You know, that for me is like the blogs that I've seen that are most successful are the ones that have these 3 things down very, very tight, or just very strong. And sometimes you can come upon that by happenstance, and sometimes it's very deliberate. But again, this is kind of like the necessary work in order to get into the promised land.